let's call to order the June 3rd meeting of the Town Center Advisory Board. May we please have roll call?
Just one second while I grab a pen. Let's see here. Vice Chair Stephenson.
Here.
Committee Member Cantrell. Committee Member Castillo-White.
Here.
Chair Knight.
Present.
Committee Member Rizzo.
Here.
Committee Member Kester.
Here.
Committee Member Hill.
Was not gonna be here tonight. He's got a training.
Great. Committee Member Prickett. She's on mute, but I heard her, or I saw her mouth move.
Yeah. He's there.
For the record, Committee Member Prickett is present and unable to unmute herself. Committee Member Winters.
Here.
Okay, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Victoria, would you lead us tonight? Would you lead us tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's open up public comment for non-agenda items. Okay. Seeing none, let's go right into the meat and potatoes. So, did everybody get a chance to watch the video if you weren't there in person? Yeah. Let's open up discussion. Is there anything you want to lead with, or we just kind of have an open table?
I guess for the record, we'll recount that on Thursday, we interviewed the one development team that we received a response to the RFQ for the Confluence at Troutdale on. Present at that interview was representatives from Ethos, Time Equities, Packer Architecture Firm, Remick Construction, and NATO Development. The recording of that meeting is available on the city's website and on the city's YouTube page for anyone who wishes to listen to it. And in front of all of you, we have a printout of their proposal that they gave to all of us. That they presented to all of us. And that proposal has also been added to the website where everyone can view the interview. And today we are discussing what recommendation we would like to put forward to the Urban Renewal Agency Board for moving forward with this process. So what recommendation we have, whether to begin conversations to enter into an exclusive negotiation agreement with these development partners or not. So that is what you are discussing here today. And I will open it up to you all to have that conversation.
Any additional?
Oh yeah, and also the people participating in the interview, we had our chair and vice chair of the Town Center Advisory Board who participated in the interview. We also had two representatives from the Urban Renewal Agency Board, which was John Leamy and Zach Andrews. Chair and vice chair here are obviously Will Knight and Tanny Stephenson. And then from the development side, you all had asked us to find local developers that could help us in that process. So we have Matt Brown here, present today. And then we also had Mike McKeel present as well at the interview. And so they're here to help provide some feedback. So we've got Matt here today. If any of you have questions or would like some of his insights on their interview process. So.
And Matt, if at any time you have something you want to add, just jump into the conversation. Don't feel like
Yeah, and if you
it's
want
informal, you're more than
to
welcome
sit
come on
at
back.
the table right there, it does have a microphone and a camera, so.
All right, thanks.
Where would we like to begin?
Oh, sorry, there was a lot, so I didn't mean, pardon me.
You wanna start with Matt or end with Matt?
Go ahead.
Put me on the spot. I'm not gonna start with very much right here, you know, I mean, I participated in this the last go around when there were 3 teams that were interviewed. You know, I think as you recall, Ethos was, you know, kind of a narrow second on that process. It seems to me that they've come back with an even more fleshed out team at this point. And critically, with time equities as part of their team, and there's a kind of a willingness, I think, on their part to look at how the retail center integrates with this. Those all seem like very positive developments to me. You know, I know the decision in front of you tonight is kind of, is this a team that you think can be passed on, right, to the URA with a recommendation that they should try to work with the team? You know, my general sense is it's a well-qualified team. You know, they have some good backing. Obviously, there's going to be design issues and development issues that you're going to want to talk about with them in the future, but they seem like a good start here for that conversation. So I'll just leave it at that, and if you have any other specifics, I'm happy to jump in. Yeah.
Start. Okay, first of all, it was nice to get to see them in person and just we could see the caliber of their professionalism, which was nice. I'll start with the first one was, when I was looking at their plan that they presented, I wanted to know how possibly flexible, besides the apartments and townhomes, I'll talk about that, or somebody else later, having everything that we walk by be for the people. And so I see that they have 2 apartment complexes, so I'm sure the design will be really cool and very neat inside. That I was concerned with it being also used for the people, because one thing that we talked about was not walking by and looking like we were walking past somebody's living room. And because for years we promised the people something that was outstanding, that everybody would just like love to go visit that area. And then if there's, with all these apartments and a little bit how it's designed, it looks like it's a beautiful neighborhood, you know, but to me it lacks a little bit more like what's for the people. So just like considerations like, and this one to the right of the water tower, maybe the lower level could be an indoor with big garage doors, community center for gatherings. So let's say to the left of it, that was food carts and vendors, so that they could have toilets, water, space for indoor farmers market. That could maybe even go out in front of it. They weren't wanting to do something like that. Maybe that building I'm talking about can be in front of that, so you're not looking at the lower level of the apartment complex. Just something for that will accommodate community gathering, markets or along the sidewalk for special events. And something like that would help facilitate, because I did the Portland Saturday Market for 10 years. You needed water, you needed toilets, there was food. So there was some things that are necessities to facilitating and accommodating communities gathering. So that just a consideration. So also the amount of apartments, they were talking about townhouses. They said they were open to the possibility of talking about owning the townhouses. At the beginning, we started talking about the council back in the day. We're talking about not wanting 0 apartments here, and now we're talking 300 plus, and then I forget on the townhouses, was that like about 47 or so, but they were presenting it as non-ownership. Concerned with that as well too, just because we did such a big push, and that's what we've been hearing all these years was home ownership. And I understand the condo, the issue with the condos, but Bremick did some nice townhomes in downtown Troutdale. I like how there's a garage underneath that accommodates, helps accommodate for parking. Another concern I had, or just contribute to the conversation, is the multi-level parking structure. We know we wanted the structure to help accommodate people to possibly have traffic flow also to the old town. And so my concern would be, what parking are they having within here that's going to accommodate any visitors that want to come directly to this? Because we already don't have enough, I feel we don't have enough parking with the new businesses that are going into downtown Troutdale to accommodate them. So what is their parking, how are they gonna accommodate that? Are they gonna put it on the floor of the apartments, or are they gonna share it with the existing factory outlets? Are they looking at this as a shared venture? That was a question I had too. So was it kind of like people could park there and then come over here? Just kind of wondering how that looks, or is that parking structure something that we're holding on to just for our needs for downtown, or how are we sharing that? So it doesn't get filled up with everybody that's here, and then there's no way for people to get downtown with our deficit in parking. Just wanting to understand that a little bit. I'll leave it at that for now. That's just a couple of thought bubbles for now.
Okay.
A few things, I've talked a lot about access, and I thought it was very interesting with time equities, talking about they have an opportunity that's gonna happen in the first quarter of next year, and that is going to be their opportunity. And I got the sense from talking to them that was the only opportunity. So if something was gonna happen to the mall, it was going to happen in the first quarter of next year, or it wasn't going to happen. And so I think that's an opportunity. But what I didn't totally get the dots connected on is time equities the owner of the outlet mall and an equity player in the development from that standpoint, or are they all in with the development? I know that, Ecos is the master developer, Hacker's the architect, Bremick's the contractor, I get all of that, but I just don't totally know what Time's level of participation is in every aspect of this. I wasn't sure about that. But I think the fact that they're open to a conversation about the mall, I think is north of huge, the way these conversations have gone on for the last, 10 years, 15 years. And I think that at a minimum has to be explored. For me personally, I don't really like the layout, not my favorite. And I talked to Hacker a little bit, and they're like, there's a lot we can do with this still. Don't get too excited about it, because I don't like it, because I don't really like the way the 5-story building is, and just the interaction with the waterfront and the structures and things of that nature. That didn't work very well for me, just an opinion. But I do think there's something to like, and I think going through the mall is going to be a game changer. I think that's the difference between failure and success, personally. And you know, the home ownership thing can probably happen. I get why they might not want to sell them because there's still liability issues when you have one of those. You know, if you sell a townhouse, I think you still, am I right with that, Matt? There's still some liability issues to carry forward,
Not as onerous as with condos,
Okay.
but yeah,
but the same type of thing.
yeah.
I'd love to see more home ownership, but if we can't manage that, we can't manage that. I like a lot of the players that they have, and I thought the group was better prepared. I thought they did a better job this time, came with a better front. If you remember last time, they came into the interviews, Ecos did in second place, and they left in third place. And, you know, so that kind of said something, and I don't think they did anything this time, or at least in my opinion, to hurt their position. I think they said a lot of the right things, and I think there's a lot to like. I did get the sense that there's not going to be, you know, a grand check that's gonna come with this development. It's probably gonna be a deed, you know, a trade, which also would make sense. And the fact that they're talking about the parking structure, I thought was a big deal too. That they would partner with that. Because we haven't always gotten that much support for that idea. So I thought that was pretty big.
I'd just like to note really quick that Mike McKeel, who was a part of the interview process, has joined the meeting, so he is online if you have any questions for him.
I would also invite Mike and Shirley online to, if you guys need, when you guys are ready to speak, just go ahead and butt in.
And Robbie actually just joined as well, so
And Robbie too?
he's now present, yes.
Victoria?
I like the fact about around the water tower, making it a community space and a year-round community space, protected from the wind and everything. I really like that idea, and then retail around that. I thought, man, that'd be nice if our water tower looked like that. But that was one of the ideas I really liked. Yeah, I was way more impressed this time with the presentation than last time. Oh, and NATO, my impression is that he's really ready to do the hotel if he gets the financing. Was that yours?
Pardon me?
NATO,
If you got the financing,
to do a hotel.
I don't think he's contingent upon financing. He wanted to do, I asked him because he said he had to do a market study. And you're phase one and you're doing the hotel and you gotta do a market study, you're not really phase one. But then he said the market study was just to determine the flag that would go on the hotel and some of the structure that would go in the hotel. So it wasn't like whether or not to do the hotel, it was just what was going to be a component of the hotel.
Yeah, I
Did you get
thought,
that too from him? Yeah.
I thought he sounded real positive on doing that in the first phase. I didn't hear much about phase two though. Did they talk, I mean, I was there, I didn't hear phase 2 and 3.
I think the comment was all rest is phase 2. That's what I thought it was.
Is what?
All the rest is phase 2.
Yeah, it's like if it's not in phase one, it's phase two.
Yeah.
Was sort of the way that they seem to be talking.
For my notes, I have, for phase one, the largest of the multifamily and the hotel, and then the road through the outlet, so that they could work closest to the river and then work their way back, so that way access through there would be better than trying to build up front and then trying to get all your equipment and stuff through that area. And then also with the financing spot, or financing issue, they would allow for a variety of developments to absorb tenants in multiple different avenues of tenants, from commercial to hotel to apartments, without just building one thing at a time and then expecting to get the tenancy on that and then move to the next one. And then, yes, everything else with phase two. Diane?
This is Diane. I understand they were talking about the potential of restaurants and how expensive they are. That's one thing I missed. I mean, great presentation and everything, but was the vision that Capstone had, where they were gathering people that were the best at what they do. So like the cider people and, you know, stuff like that. So they weren't really speaking to that. But I'm hoping that, I was happy to hear that they said they were willing to work with the city. And when I came up with that question at TCAB a long time ago, I was thinking of Marley, who I think has excellent taste. She frequents Portland and she has a good eye for what's exceptional. And I'm hoping for some things like that. They're like Solstice Pizza, that's a wood fire, you know, in Hood River that moved from, I used to frequent them in Bingen. And then bike rentals, really capture tourism, what we would like to do, because we kept telling people, this is gonna be a landmark, this is gonna be amazing, this is gonna be wow. We're not gonna be wowed by the apartments unless you live there. It's still a nice development is nice, makes good neighbors. I mean, this is awesome, great opportunity. But there has to be something for the people, it's like, so they don't come like, what happened here? So creatively do that. And I mean, it'd be awesome to have one great steak and seafood place. And I understand it. The market's tough. It has to be willing people. It has to pen out. But it'd just be nice that if they would buy in a little bit or understand that. So maybe there is a restaurant that is wanting to be a landmark there ahead of time. So, you know, or even if it's Sugar Pine Diner, you know, so Sugar Pine would have actually I know, but a covered area. They excel at what they do, handcrafted, local fare. They get organics and different stuff from people. They have featured chefs that come in from all around the United States that come in and do special little things all the time, whether it's the toppings for an ice cream or a special salad. Everything's very unique, interesting, but it's something that tourists come to, you know, and then that way tourists lead to coming to some of the retail and then going to the outlets and then coming and exploring Troutdale. So, so I'm really hoping that is, that they understand that. That's why we love Capstone, because they had the vision for the people, someplace that we all would want to go.
You know, just say, and I agree with you, but just keep in mind that because they say, hey, we plan to put good coffee in here, doesn't mean that good coffee is going to actually go in there. That's who they're talking to. And it could be Starbucks, it could be nobody. I mean, there's not any guarantee that you're gonna have X in there.
I understand there's no guarantee, but I do like that Capstone was thinking local. And when you go local, people like that vibe, especially tourists and the young people. It's like, oh, gotta be part of that. I mean, and then plus, it usually means some creative foods. So like I said, harvesting, getting a little bit of flavor. When I worked at Skamania Lodge when it first started, we had the chef and it was all native and the Northwest cuisine. We had 2-hour-long wait lines when we opened for years. And I get that, but I'm just saying that Capstone, I mean, you can have a dream and you can have an approach and then have good partners and then identify that that's good for them as well. I think it's a win-win for everyone because that type of thing, like I said, would just only help the outlets as well.
This is Sherry. I just want to ask you a question, what you're saying though. So we're evaluating this team to put forward. Are you saying that the Capstone thing is way better and so this team isn't a good team?
No, I'm saying they are a good team, but I'm hoping they incorporate what we liked about Capstone, some of that vision.
Okay.
That's all, because see, we're having a conversation whether to continue the conversation. I'm just throwing in some things that, speaking, I think for me, for coming here for many years, being part of the original town center, being part of the people who went door to door to pass out those flyers, and how we got the people excited to participate in the taxing district and stuff. I just want to make sure it's just not like, okay, we have this apartment complex, oh, here's the park for that. I mean, it's great for investment. And I'm glad they're the ones that are wanting to do it. And I talked to one of, I think the architect, and he was saying that everything we do is special and unique. So it's special and unique of itself, so it's great for the person going in there, and it's gonna be lovely. And they will be coming to downtown, which is a plus, and they will be going to the outlet. So they will be enhancing our community. Anyway, you know, just because of their nice designs, but I'm just giving some suggestions why we have the opportunity to talk, you know, yeah.
So I would just say that because obviously I come into this in a much
Oh, yeah,
later
that's right.
perspective, I could hear them saying that, and see it in their literature, that they would be spending some time, once again, checking with the community to know what the community wants. So if all of that still rings true, it would make sense for them to participate that way, right?
It would be. We've had the community come in many times. We've been at this for how many years with Town Center?
8.
8 years. We know what we've heard them. We've heard them. Yes, it's good to have an outreach to hear them again. But we as the representatives of the community, and doing Town Center for the 8 years that some of us have been doing it, have an opportunity to voice what we think we heard from the people. That's all I'm doing right now.
Oh, no, I totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
And this being, like, I'll chime in with mine. I agree with you in much of what you first started off with saying, or at least what struck me. And that was, like, when we talk, I think you brought up the ownership piece, and there was kind of little amount of stuff that could be owned down there. I believe our society, personal opinion here, but I believe that we've pushed so much for rentals, and it's good for some people, but I also think that when somebody can own something, they might actually care for it more, as opposed to maybe the a bit more transient idea of coming in and renting for a little bit and leaving. And so it kind of takes a little bit away from the community, I think, when you don't have the ability to own and take care of that kind of thing. So I don't like it when there's so much rental down there, personal opinion. I also was a little bit, when I looked at the pictures on some of the stuff, I was concerned about parking in some areas. I know that was one of their points they made about there'd be people that talk about parking being an issue. So I think like that was one of the things I felt like, is there really enough parking in that one area, or is that just gonna become, parked into those townhouses, or, like, I'm not really sure. And then thirdly, I come with the perspective of working with youth. And so when I see this, and I believe what they're talking about is families and things like that living here, I look at it and I say, that park along the strip is great for people walking and that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of people that put out a basketball hoop because the kid wants to shoot some hoop. And where would that go in here? Like, that seems concerning to me, that there's a little piece of that that's not like being considered. It's very beautiful looking. But anyway, my 2 cents.
Good talking. Hey Shirley, I noticed that your mic was off. You have something? You want to go next?
Yeah, I've got some comments if it's time to do that for me.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, the one thing that I, from a developer standpoint, that I think could be a negative for this is the north and south edge along the railroad tracks and along the freeway. And I think in reality, because of the nature of this development, I think that edge needs to be softened on both the north and the south. The building's right up against, the right of way there, and then the down in Southern California, that, the train that goes from Los Angeles to San Diego goes by some places, and it's really been an issue. And if you had your choice if I was going to do this, I would probably think about doing some berms on there and then putting some vertical, uh, uh, trees that are going to at least mask that a little bit and soften it up, for the future. The other thing is, when we talk about restaurants, we've got two projects in Gresham, and we're all full, but they're all locally owned, family owned places. But the rents can be such that they can make it, on what we charge. The newly built stuff is having a real problem. And when you look at it, there was an article about 2 months ago in the New York Times, and even the restaurants there, they said the only thing that saves them is Friday and Saturday night, because all the rest of the time they're closed. I mean, they're not doing any business. And I think, that really is to have some thought about what will allow the kind of restaurants that will bring people in and to be successful. I know Sugar Pine has been, doing great. Now, whether they can go into a newly built place, and do the same thing they're doing there, and, but, from a business standpoint, the amount of money that you have to turn in a restaurant now, and especially in newly built places, is extraordinarily high. And when you talk about the rentals versus home ownership, I think this would be, unless you had the entire place being in home ownership and not as many rentals, I can understand these developers building these things and selling them. There's usually not much money to be made on the front end when you build them. And I know I just gave up on a project in Gresham because the price was damn high, that we would lose $1 million if we built it. And but if you're going to, and we were going to build them to sell, but if you build these to sell, it would be really tough to make any money on them, just because of and particularly the economy. You cannot predict what they're going to cost over the period of a year and a half that you're working on these things. So you got to be really careful about that. We just had almost 100-unit project going in downtown Gresham, right across from the Arts Plaza, and it's pretty much all rented up. And the live workplaces are almost all, if they're not all, rented up already. But that amenity, and you've got an amenity here of the river and that park along the river that can make that happen. But I think the quality of the architecture, the quality of the tenants you would attract, I think is what makes that possible. I would say that just from a standpoint of a business standpoint, right now it makes more sense to do market rate rentals of a really high quality. That's the one thing in East County I've always criticized, is we're getting the pretty much the tail end of good in multifamily stuff. And I can tell you there's places that have been newly built that aren't doing too well. And I saw some of the photos, and hopefully some of the architecture that is being done in Portland that could be brought here into it. The Gorge is a hell of a place to be able to build. And I think you got to do it right, because whatever gets built here is going to be here for 150 years. And so I think highly done architecture, market rate, and doing them for rentals is probably going to give you the best product. I think if somebody's going to do things to sell and they look at the thing, if you look at what's being built in Gresham now, I just want to weep when I see how poorly constructed this stuff is, to get it down to even $600,000 for a house that almost the whole bottom floor is a tiny garage. So I think we got to keep that in mind. But I think the main thing here, whatever gets built in here, I think you've got to dissociate it somewhat from the railroad and from the freeway. And I think when you've got those buildings right up against it, or asphalt going right up to it, it's going to be a visual negative, to people visiting here. So I've got some other stuff, but I think that's all I want to say for now.
This is Sherry. Can I just get clarification so I understand what you're saying, Michael? Are you saying that some of these places should be high-end rentals?
Well, I'm saying market rate. I think in Gresham, the ones that have just been built, they're called the Arts Plaza Apartments. A one bedroom there is about $2,100 a month, and they're filling up, and I think they're pretty close to all full, but they've got a roof garden and these things. You got their own gym and those things, and I think to attract the stability that you get with that kind of renter means a lot to a project in the long run. Now you go over to Gresham Station, and they've got some, large numbers of places. I think the architecture on them leaves something to be desired, and they're not filling up, and it's not doing too well. And the restaurants and the commercial stuff that they were going to do has pretty much fallen out of favor. And so I think, what you have to look is what I think Troutdale needs and wants here is something of a high quality and something that has stability. The worst thing you can have in apartments is turnover, where they're high price, but doesn't give you much for the high price. And they're constantly turned over, and that's what costs you the most money as an owner. And I'm not sure, most of the stuff I build, I sell. And I know how tough that is to do. And right now it's about as tough as I've ever seen it. So I don't think it'd be a matter of, if you really wanted it here, I think you'd have to do quite a bit of it. But I'll tell you, once you turn it over to an owner or an owners association, you don't know how that's going to be managed. And if you get, let's say, you had a third of this of owner occupied stuff, and it isn't taken care of very well, it'll keep everything else will be suffered for that. And I can tell you, if you go over to Pleasant Valley, where all the building is going on, and go through there, it's like I say, it makes me weep as a developer, as a resident of Gresham. It is so awful. And to do more than that, and to sell them and make a profit, it's going to be a really tough deal. I mean, I know what you'd want and I would want too, and I just don't know for this site that I think it could bite you. And I'm saying that because I'm in the business of selling things for people where they live, and it's really a tough deal right now.
I completely appreciate what you're saying there. I think my clarification I want was what they're presenting in their proposal. Are they offering up higher end, or is it seeming to be?
Well, what I saw in their images was very high end, and I don't mean high end. It's to the point where you're being ostentatious. It's just that good architecture, and I mean, I know you've got architects talking to you about this, but good architecture doesn't have to be. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but it doesn't have to be onerous. But I'll give you an example. We did 208 units down on the corner of Gleason and Fairview Parkway, and Julie LeBray did that. I had 4 offers on that property, and I joined with Julie to do the 208 units, but she did them in a way that people aspire to live there, and they're market rate apartments. I actually had offers that were more than she offered, but I did it with her to get, and I think that's what you have the opportunity to do here, is to be very clear of what you want if you are going to do rental housing here. It has to be architecturally well done, and it has to give people more than they expect, and it has to be different than you're getting every place else in East County.
Thank you.
So, sort of buying into the idea that I'm a relative newcomer to to the process. But, I know first of all, the feel that I got from the proposal and just sort of the vision, was giving me, a lot of flashbacks to the kinds of things that I experienced in, like, inner suburban Melbourne when I lived down there. And frankly, that's a good thing. Melbourne is, as you guys know, is a massive city, but the way that metropolitan and cosmopolitan city is structured makes it glorious for pedestrians and bikers and people who are living in apartments there, and sometimes massive apartment complexes, but still feeling like they can walk around and have connections to the outside and connections to their community and the people they're living in. And that's something that is rare to find in large developments. And they're waterside developments that they frequently do, where you've got 1 or 2 floors that are open air and public facing and big pedestrian malls and little, like, I really like the community space around the water tower idea. I think having that be open for various kinds of events is and uses is very attractive to me. I second the idea, what Tammy was saying about the opportunity that time equities seem to be fronting about the timing, the financial timing about getting a driveway through the outlet mall. If that is the way that it sounded, it is certainly an opportunity that we can't afford to miss. And along with that, I mean, the idea that they presented in the packet about having this development being an extension or feeling like an extension of the existing downtown, I think is a wonderful idea. But take that to its logical conclusion, it means that the access points that have been kind of presented as being future market driven or possible, such as a ped bridge across the railroad tracks, or the parking garage and the driveway through the outlet mall, all then really become essentials rather than possibles. Otherwise, it's not a functional extension. It might look like an extension from the air as the grid matches, but if you can't actually walk from point A to point B, it's not going to feel like an extension. I had similar concerns and I guess desires about the general feeling about rent versus own percentages. Although from what Mike was saying, I 100% get it. Market realities are what they are. And then kind of piggybacking off of that also, in a lot of the demographics that I've been reading lately is that even amongst homeowners, the idea of buying something and staying put for more than 5 years at a time is almost an anachronistic concept anymore these days. Whether you have homeowners that stay put for 3 or 4 years and then sell because their personal conditions change, or you have renters that stay put for 3 or 4 years and then move on to something else because their conditions change, and to a certain extent it's a lot of different stuff. The important thing to, like Michael was saying, is to have a community where people want to stay put. I spent large chunks of my adult life never living in a single mailing address for more than 3 years at a time. It was one of the reasons why I came here, is I wanted to buy a house and stay put. But among my larger family and my social base, I'm still a rare one. People are moving. At least when they can. Sometimes market realities makes that impossible. Let's see, what are some of the other things I had written down? I think the kind of hotel that we get will make a massive impact on what this community turns into, whether it's a kind of boutique hotel, or whether it's like a small small scale conference center kind of hotel, bringing in corporate events or whatever, or standard flag corporate hotel, catering tourists coming in and out of the gorge. And what bucket that falls into, I think is gonna be huge, and will, to a certain extent, nudge what the whole area feels like in a little bit in one direction or another. Through a lot of these discussions, I have ragged on this a lot, and I know I'm very much in the minority on this, but one of the things that I think is critically important when looking at the community of people that we're wanting to live and exist in this area, and this goes for the entirety of Town Center, including the Confluence, is where are the basic services that these people are going to access? How far away are they? How far are people going to need to drive, walk, bike, whatever, to get things like daily meals, food, basic stuff? And the shorter that radius can be, and personally, I think if people can live, work, and play within the bounds of that site entirely, I think we've struck gold. Because, I mean, if people can do what they want to do for their daily life and not need to drive anywhere, not need to find a different parking spot, then they are going to be happy. I guess the last thing or last two things, while I know that over the years, there has been a certain vision and image that has been talked about both within the city circles and also within the larger community, and things that have been sold to them as far as what this is going to look like. Changes in the market and the post-COVID world has changed a lot of plans previously laid. And I think at some level, most people realize that, and that the image that they had in their head as to what this should have been, if we could have waved a magic wand and done all this 20 years ago, is going to be very different than what it turns into now. And then I guess the last thing is 100% agree with Mike about softening something between the north and the south, and the major noise things. And the main reason I say this is a couple months ago, I had to run a convention and have massive space where you had hundreds of people trying to play games, and you had Max right on the other side of the wall running by every 15 minutes. Is a little disruptive. Anything that we can do to lessen the disruption, and I know that the noise will be there. People will know that it's there when they come in, and to a certain extent, they'll tune a lot of it out because they do. But anything we can do to soften those edges will be a good thing. John?
I had a couple of things, but the first one is, do you have the proposal that they did? could you, on page 20 of it, there's a picture, that top picture
Yep.
is actually a retail store that he said he thought would fit perfect into this.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, like little boutique grocery or food market or trying stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the kind of thing that I think would be, yeah, if people can,
Right.
and because, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So what I think you are all, because I'm not voting on anything, is that we need to decide, is this group a qualified group to take a projected development, which in the end will probably look nothing like this development, but do we have enough faith in them that they would be willing to work with us and the community to come up with a finalized plan that we can all live with? They did talk about the community input. They want to reach out. I know we've all talked to the community, but they haven't talked to the community. And so they want to find out what the community wants and see how we can put this all together. I do have one concern in that, as Tanny said, there's this tight window of time on the access to there. And they are showing on page 35, phase 1, going around the outside of the mall. And only in phase 2 are they going to be going through the mall. If they don't take advantage of going through the mall in phase 1, they're going to lose that opportunity.
Just a point, if I recall, and others who were there as well, I did hear them say when we talked about the phasing, we asked the phase 1, phase 2 question, they included the drive access regardless of this diagram.
Okay.
They said that would be a phase 1 activity,
So they were
driven primarily by their own
they're
timing issues.
refinancing or something, and they have to do it then? Or-
I think they're doing they have a loan refinance coming up for the center that gives them, I think they had some loan covenants previously that they felt were impossible to break, but with a refinance coming up, that they have the opportunity to revisit that.
Right.
Yeah. Is that correct from what I
Yeah,
recall?
and just what I got from talking to them was anything that was gonna happen on that front was gonna happen the first quarter of 26. Their refinancing period, that's when it was gonna happen.
If I could just add a little bit on the refinancing, because we've done a lot of that with our projects lately. And a lot of these people that are refinancing, or a lot of the banks and organizations, they're getting tougher on their requirements. And so I think you really want to get a handle on whether they can pull this off with getting a new loan or getting the existing loan extended. Most of these loans come due every 5 to 7 years. And they sound like they're a year and a half away from the end of the term. But you're also seeing interest rates jump up, probably double for what they got 5 years ago. And that's a critical element. I think you really need to know what's going on with that. One of the things that they may have, a lot of these centers are financed with insurance companies like John Hancock. And we had the bad luck of, I was a chairman and a board member for 22 years of Moda Health. We sold the Moda Tower at a time when the state did not want us to have as many illiquid assets being an insurance company. And so we sold it and paid off John Hancock and got served with an $8 million bill for interest they would have received if we'd have taken it to full term. And so if you get it, they call it a maintenance of yield clause, and we thought they would waive it. They didn't. It cost $8 million. So there's a lot of things that got to happen, and I think that's critical to have that entrance and that roadway through there. And I think you need to have some assurances that that can happen. Or, you know, you could have some bad news somewhere in the middle of where you don't want it.
Zach or Shirley or Robbie, anything you want to add?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Hey, did we get confirmation that I'm able to comment on this in any capacity, Marley?
Got Erica nodding her head, yes.
Eric?
Okay, great, awesome. Well, I a lot of good comments tonight. I think some valid concerns. I think whoever, or if we decide to move forward, either way, it's something that we're going to have to stick very close to and make sure that the right people are in the room with the ENA. I appreciated that Marley and Erica clarified, you know, at what phase they were going to be including the access, because that was kind of a essential part for me, is to kind of have that phase one just in case along the road anything changes. But yeah, I think you guys had a lot of good comments, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys decide.
Thank you. Shirley?
Chair? I want to say that I listened to the interview process. I really liked the way they presented it, and were willing to take the step and include our community and work with the city to get the best results we can. It probably isn't the most perfect design, but it looks good. I like the fact that they're gonna use the hotel parking as shared parking during the day, because like they said, most of their customers are usually gone during the day. That will help with the parking. It's probably not it isn't anything like the first design that we approved, that you guys all looked at in the beginning. But I think if they work with the community and listen, which they said they would, I think we're gonna get a good project out of it.
We just have to keep in mind that it's still a concept design, and it's got a long way to go before it becomes anything, but you also have to be really careful as we go to the next steps that we won't be involved in, but there's a fine line between getting what you want and getting what you hate. And it can happen pretty quickly and pretty easily. I do agree, though. I think the access is paramount, and I think that if for some reason, I don't know, what did they say? They were a $1.6 billion company or something? Time?
Yeah.
Pretty large. I would have to think that they can figure this out, and if somehow it isn't gonna get figured out, then I think that's a point of pause on the whole thing, actually. If you somehow can't make that happen, you gotta step back and say, okay, what is this gonna look like? But I would think that Time Equities is gonna find a way to do something through the mall that's gonna benefit them and benefit all the rest of us at the same time. And you know, when Ecos was talking, they were talking about an at-grade crossing, possibly, the railroad, probably on the Kibling side. But they were in favor of working with the parking structure, trying to figure that out. I thought that was huge. And we have an extreme shortage in higher end housing. And anybody that puts housing is going to be paying attention to that. They're going to be looking at it. They're going to say, whoa, you guys are really short on the higher end stuff, and you're doing pretty good on the lower end stuff. So I would imagine what gets built in here is probably going to be the upper end of market rate. Probably not on the bottom end of market rate. It's probably going to be on the higher end of it, because that's actually where we have a bigger need at this time.
Any thoughts, comments?
Just want to just add a couple more things here. I want to reiterate something that everyone has kind of expressed tonight, but just underline the importance of it because I think you're absolutely correct. The connection through the outlet center, the pedestrian connection, the trail connection along the river, all these are really important. We know, why is it important? This site is an island, right? It doesn't connect to anything. You know, one of the things that my mentors taught me was, you know, if you're working on these new urban neighborhoods, these new urban developments, connections are nearly the most important thing that you need to look at. You know, if you can't integrate or connect these areas, they're going to be really hard to kind of make work, you know, on their own, right? You have to generate all that activity, you know, internally and hope that it works. You start connecting it to other things, all of a sudden, you know, there's a lot more energy and excitement happening, coming in and out of that area. Second, just to reinforce Mike's point and something that Tanny just said, if you look at what it's going to cost to build a 5-story apartment building, by definition, you are going to be in the current cost environment towards the upper end of market out here. That's just the environment that we're in. So I think, you know, they have to get comfortable also with that idea, right? That they're going to be pricing apartments where there may not be a lot of comps in the market that necessarily give them comfort that it's just going to fill right up. So their challenge is going to be, can I get, you know, these buildings to cost out, and am I confident that I'm going to be able to get the rents that are necessary to make all this pencil? And then just one last point, I agree about the north and the south. I would add that the buffer between the mall and the neighborhood is just as important. If you stand out there and look at the back of the mall and understand what that environment is, there's going to be some attention that needs to be paid to that edge as well. So I'm actually less concerned about the freeway edge, in part because of the way that the hotel is going to help kind of frame and mask, you know, a good portion of that. But all of those edges, yes, they do require a lot of careful attention.
This Sherry, I did kind of feel like we addressed a bit with that hotel, even making reference to the Hood River Hotel and it not seeming to have an issue, you know, against the freeway out there too. So, I mean, I think I'm wondering too, what is, let's say, said population going to be down in this area when filled?
I mean, we're talking about, what, 397, let's call it 400 units, is that right? Between the multifamily and the townhomes? And a little bit of live work maybe? So, you know, it's probably somewhere around, you know, probably two per unit, to be honest. Could be more, a little over 2. So you're 800 to 900, 1,000 at the most, I would say. I don't know, Mike, what do you think? What do you think the population density for these units might be?
Hold on, I have to unmute him.
Oh, you have to unmute him.
Well, he can unmute himself, but I muted him to.
Okay, I'm back. Could you run that by me again? I'm sorry.
What do you think the population density per unit might be down in this area?
Well, my guess is it's going to be anywhere from 1 to 2, and I think there may be, it diminishes with 3 and diminishes even more with more than 3. And I think you're going to see more mature people because of the cost and the necessity. You know, younger families, you know, a lot of the low income stuff is trying to get, you know, 4, 5, 6 people in a unit. And I don't think this is really the place for that. And I think when I built Salish Ponds, I talked to Sarah Sasanka, who wrote a really popular book called The Not So Big House. And she was saying that, you know, the real expansion of density is in the 1 to 2 person market. And I think that, you know, we built Salish Ponds 25 years ago. And I would say that, well, I know exactly, there's only, in the 10 cottages we did on the south or the west lake, half of them are one person and the other half are two people.
Go ahead, Danny.
Okay. I'm trying to remember what I was gonna say now. We've looked at this for a long time, and I'm somebody who said before, let's not settle out, let's get the right thing. And I still say that, but I just think about from the time we started this process, what have we had? We've had COVID, we've had food carts, we've had Amazon. You want me to keep going? Yeah, I mean, we've had a number of things happen that have drastically changed, CFEC, okay, drastically changed the housing market, the retail market, land development, all of these things. And it's like, what you thought was gonna go there, and this isn't settling out, but what you thought was gonna go there 10 years ago, believe me, isn't gonna work today. There's just like no way. I think you would agree with that. But also too, this isn't a thing where you're sitting on a corner with a sign that says for sale and a developer's gonna come in and build some project. The way that this has to work is you have to have people that want to develop this property. It has to be people that want to do this. And if you don't have that, it isn't gonna work. You just can't say, oh, Joe developer is gonna come in and do it, and it's all gonna be great. It's not gonna happen.
So because we've got somebody interested, they want to. I felt
Yeah,
like
and
from it, they
maybe
seemed
it's them, maybe it's someone else, but it has to be somebody that wants to do this. And you can't look at this and say, oh, they're gonna make just a killing on this thing. The reality is they may get killed on this thing. Or they may do well on it. Nobody knows that. I think Matt would agree with that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I might add one other thing too. It depends on if people are borrowing money to do this or they have their own money to do it. And it's a big difference.
I suppose for myself, most of the comments and concerns that I had were brought up. The only thing I hadn't heard is if maybe with this partnership with Time Equities that we might be able to throw in a reimagining of the outlet mall that might coincide with the new look of the new space, because that's going to be a pretty big difference between the two. If they were to update the mall in a similar architectural style, replace the roof that's so ugly, then they would have a cohesive space out there. Maybe that could be brought into discussion in the future.
Some of that is already in the list of possibles, with the extra retail space along the alleged Center Drive. I mean, that's, to a certain extent, that may already go in.
Maybe something that I want the next step, the next group that takes that on to try to discuss. So I guess in looking to kind of wrangle us into where we need to go, and that's a decision of whether or not we want to recommend this to City Council to meet and continue the discussions. Is there?
I just have a point. We've been at this for a long time, and I think I'd appreciate if maybe Will and Tanny would be willing to go to the next meeting that what is their official name? URA has. And just to make sure, possibly they're part of the conversation, or I know 4 of you made it. So Zach, you, my husband, Glenn White, and Mayor.
Oh, yeah.
And Mayor was there. But just, I feel comfortable, because I don't know if you're making it, but then you can answer some common sensibility of development that that might not be their forte, but I just think it'd be nice to have them as part of the conversation as well. That's my only little.
It'd probably be good if all the URA people watched the video before that meeting.
Yeah. We can send them the links and make sure that they have all the same information that you've all had to make
Right.
this decision.
And they'll get a staff report.
And a staff report, yeah.
Right.
So, go ahead, Sherry.
Because I don't know, I'm gonna ask this question. Can we, if we decide that we wanna send this forward, can we, say yes, but we believe with these stipulations? Does it work that way? Like, we really wanna see access through the mall, or we don't get to? We just say these people are good or they're not?
I think we're saying that you're continuing the conversation and it's going to evolve. I don't know that we could dictate or say, you know, maybe we like the proposal or we like the concept, but not like we could say this is. I don't think we can put any meat to anything, because we're just advisory.
It's too early days anyway, really.
I think it's just like with me personally, if I was to say yes, it's not a carte blanche yes with whatever, it's a yes, I believe, as long as what they're saying, you know, they're kind of going with that plan and not suddenly deviating and going elsewhere. The political climate tells me that.
Or can we say, yes, we're sending this forward for conversation or whatever the next step is, but this was our input. And then have the things that were brought up today that were the concerns, so at least there's a note of it.
Yeah, in the staff report that we write, we can include summary of the information that you've all said today and also, you know, what's been said thus far. I think that you'd make the recommendation separate from any other recommendation. So if you had additional recommendations, I think you could probably make them, but that's not necessarily something that they would then just be aware of it, I guess. I don't know that it would work its way into something else. Or we can just put it in the staff report so that they're aware of that. I'm not sure exactly what the language of their decision would be for what they're asking city staff to go do negotiating, so.
Almighty city councilor.
Question, and I hope I can ask this. Can you make a recommendation contingent on access through the mall?
I would say you can't, because you have to have the conversation first. You got the chicken and the egg. You gotta have the conversation about the development before anybody tries to get access through the mall. Right? But I don't know that the deal has to be done before all those components are in place.
Okay, this is Sherry, here's my question, because I don't know. If they couldn't get access to the mall, is it still worth going forward?
What I would say is that you all would not necessarily make a contingent recommendation because your recommendation is just to the URA board. The URA board could could authorize the city staff to have the conversation, you know, to begin negotiating this ENA and the DDA. And potentially that could have some sort of progress report on the access through the outlet mall, or some sort of contingency around access potentially and what they're asking city staff to do. Maybe. I would see it more as like I wouldn't make a contingency necessarily. I would just state that there's required progress reports, and those must speak to the access points and progress made with access. And they're going to, in the agreement, have like built-in fail-safes for something like that not happening. Maybe I'll look at Erica and see if I just misspoke.
I missed the last.
Sorry, I was distracting her.
No, that's okay. I didn't know if you guys were talking about what I was specifically saying or, but basically, the recommendation that they're making tonight is to the URA board regarding moving forward. So they wouldn't make a contingent recommendation because their recommendation.
That is correct, but in our staff report that we present to the Urban Renewal Agency, in that staff report and in our presentation, we will talk about what we heard from TCAP and what the priorities are for this site that we've heard tonight. That, we've talked about, access, we've talked about a little bit about design, we've talked about programming. So we'll make sure all of those comments are wrapped up into that recommendation to the URA. And then I think when we start negotiations, we will have priorities up front with the team, letting them know, this is what we've heard from PCAB, this is what we've heard from the Urban Renewal Agency, these are the priorities of the community, and this is how we would like to move forward.
Would you, at least for my sake, help to give some clarity on what the process looks like from here with regards to this group, the URA, and you guys? Is it, okay, thanks TCAB, we got it from here, kick rocks, we don't want to talk to you again? Or is it more of a cooperative, we're going to come back, we're going to discuss what comes back from you guys, then make another recommendation to the URA? How does this process work as we go down this path?
Yeah, so I didn't bring that slide with me, but the process moving forward. So tonight, we are looking for a recommendation from TCAB. If you feel as though this development team has the qualifications to do such a project on this site. And then that recommendation will go to the Urban Renewal Agency. They'll hear your recommendation, and then, like I said, they'll also hear about the things that we talked about tonight. And then the Urban Renewal Agency, they will make a decision to move forward, entering into a negotiation agreement for development of that site. The negotiation agreement could take a couple of months to work out. But upfront, we'll have kind of a list of priorities that the community values that we would like to see moving forward. One of them will most likely be about the access through the mall.
So I appreciate that. I guess what I was trying to get at is, will after the negotiation, those things come back to this group and we will get a chance to review them and give input again in the future, or are we done with it after this?
Through the negotiation process, I think we can come back with, did you talk about like a progress report or some kind of update?
Yeah, so I think, but don't hold me to it, that with the last process, when we were working with Capstone, the URA board made the same recommendation about progress reports or like periodic reporting back on how things are going. And I think that's something that, the TCAB and URA board could both be a part of, whether they're presented separately or maybe it's joint meetings or something like that. I think that the level of TCAB's involvement in this moving forward is contingent on what the URA board wants their level of involvement to be. So the URA board are ultimately the decision makers on this, but if they value the input that TCAB has and they want to continue having that input, they can choose to involve you as much or as little as, like, they get to make that decision. That's not necessarily something that's prescribed in a code somewhere and says, it's one of those things that, like, our code does lay out what your roles and objectives are as TCAB, but it's within that the URA board can say, we want the TCAB involved at these different levels and,
Or at
this
these
is-
different
this is-
stages.
These different stages, community engagement, I do know that, I remember the, development team spoke about TCAB having the opportunity to be involved with the community engagement process and, being a good forum for community members to, like, this is already a reoccurring meeting, so it would fit nicely that, the community engagement pieces could occur here or could be a part of all of your conversations. And so that's something that the URA board could say, we want, community engagement on this to be in partnership with TCAB or assisted by TCAB.
So thank you, I guess understanding that now, it may be a little simpler for me to say yes or no to are these people qualified? And then maybe also request that in the staff report that we have a lot of great input and people who would like to also continue to be involved in this process as it progresses as much as possible.
Just to refresh my own memory, the previous round with Capstone never made it out of the ENA stage, correct?
No,
Made it into the ENA stage.
Or did it even make it into the ENA stage? Proper.
we were discussing we had an ENA, we did not have a DDA, I believe.
That's correct.
Should we,
Give me a few more alphabets.
Yeah, I know.
should we do a quick moment for public comment? Open it up for that real quick. Paul still there? Yeah. Paul's still on. We'll give it just a quick beat. Frank, do you have anything? Okay. So how does everybody feel about that idea of a qualification, yes or no, with the staff report, with all of our items in there, and also a request to keep us involved?
I don't know that my question got answered, is if we didn't have access through the mall, would this still be a viable project?
I believe they also mentioned in their presentation that they felt it was essential to the project.
Okay.
If am I remembering that correctly? So I think both sides kind of believe it's essential.
Okay, that's
I agree. I would just add, I think it would be a different project if you didn't have
Right.
the connection through. So it's not that nothing would happen, you'd probably be evaluating something that looked quite different.
Okay.
Yeah. It may not hit all the goals that you're trying to accomplish for the site.
Or any, sorry.
I might add one comment about that. You've got a for sure access to it, which is a less than desirable access. The access that's the most desirable is right through the mall. But you've got 4 people that are going to have to approve that. One is the city, one is the developers, one is the mall, and one is the mortgage holder of the mall. So I would be hesitant to put requirements on that until you get all 4 of those entities, agreeing on how it should be and if it can be. But I agree that if you have to go on the access you do have, it would have a dramatic change on the possibilities here.
Any last comments or thoughts? Online at all?
Don't look at me, because I'll have something to say, and I'll say it really fast. Okay, I had mentioned something for the community in front of the building, I see it on this map. The only thing I'm saying, gonna suggest is as much coverage as possible. We can't really count on months like I do the summer concert series, and we don't know if it's gonna rain 4th of July, if it's gonna rain in June, or if it's gonna rain in September, so coverage is just nice, so that not complete coverage like a contained building, but just saying, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. So I believe the question that we are here to answer tonight is whether or not this group would like to recommend to the URA that this group is qualified and that we would like them to move forward with discussions.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would move that the Town Center Advisory Board, after meeting on April 17th and reviewing the proposal from Ecos Development and interviewing Ecos Development on May 29th, we recommend moving forward with the concept proposal presented by Ecos Development.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll call it TCAB members only.
Okay.
I'm gonna, just make one friendly recommendation that we write ethos development instead of ecos development, just so that there's not, don't know if there's an ecos development out there, but, we don't know them, so. Ethos development work for you, Tanny?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. The ethos development team and partners, great. And that was a second from Diane.
Yeah.
Just making some quick notes for us. Okay. Vice Chair Stephenson,
Yes.
Committee Member Cantrell,
Yes.
Committee Member Castillo White,
Yes.
Chair Knight,
Yes.
Committee Member Rizzo,
Yes.
Committee Member Kester,
Yes.
Committee Member Prickett,
Her battery was gone.
she's no longer online. Committee Member Winters,
Yes.
anybody else? No. Motion passes. Passes.
Excellent, good work. So when is that next meeting?
And then, so we're making recommendations too, right? Or is it all in the staff report?
It'll be all in the staff report, but Will and Tanny, if you would like to be at the meeting to help us with the presentation and for them to hear exactly what we heard tonight here at TCAB, that would be great. It's gonna be held on June 17th at 7 o'clock, I think, 7 o'clock.
So it's in 2 weeks from today.
I'm going to be out of the state on that day. Would someone like to replace Dylan for me?
I can join you for that, Will, if you need backup.
It'll be Tanny and Adrian.
Or, yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
I thank our guests.
Yes.
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 Absolutely.
Pleasure. Fun to be here with you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Any other items of business? Any staff updates?
You want a staff update?
I don't know, if you
Sure.
just have anything you want to share.
Yes, sure. This week is First Friday, so as a reminder, that's a very fun event that happens in downtown, but it also does mean that the historic Columbia River Highway and a couple of the side streets will be closed to vehicular traffic between about 2:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Well, no, I'm sorry, 2:30 p.m. on Friday, and it's all weekend long because it's Troutdale Arts Festival weekend as well. The road will not be reopening until Sunday, 7 p.m. So the detour route is well signed, and we have flaggers and everything. There's 2 separate events. First Friday is on Friday evening from 5 to 9 p.m. And then Troutdale Arts Festival is Saturday and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. all different vendors, so you should come both days. First Friday has more of the art and craft vendors, and then Troutdale Arts Festival is the fine art festival. And it's gonna be a lot of fun, so try to come out if you can. There are free shuttles for both events, provided by Sasquatch Shuttle, which you can pick up at the Outlet Mall or at Troutdale Arts Center. It'll drop you off in downtown, so you don't have to worry about any parking. Or if you live close by, you can walk. What else? That's consuming a lot of my time right now, so that's, I feel like, the main thing on my mind. But it's summer tourism season. The Multnomah Falls permits are, for the parking lot at exit 31 are in effect. The visitor center, the Gateway to the Gorge Visitor Center here in Troutdale does offer same-day in-person permits for free. And that brings a lot of tourists into town for us as well, so that's really exciting to get to see the tourism kick up the second those permits go into effect. Erica, do you have any staff updates?
Enjoy the weather. It's gonna be nice this week.
Yep.
Don't get hot. Don't get hot.
Thank
That's
you,
it.
everyone. Shall we entertain a motion to close?
Move we adjourn.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great night, everyone.